I'm going to glue it up now, and so I've got my jig that I've used for boring, which is also for assembly, and then the glue that I'm using is hot hide glue. It's gram strength of 192, but you don't have to go there and get that complicated with it. Use whatever glue you got. They all work well. There's lots of reasons why I use this hide glue. One of them is that I buy a 5-pound bag of it for 30 bucks and it lasts me for 15 years, and I don't have all those little plastic bottles to throw away. And then it's reversible, and then you can size with it, and there's a whole lot of reasons, but there is a learning curve with the stuff. I wouldn't just jump right into it. The liquid stuff is fine. You got a lot of open time with it, so you could use it, or just whatever glue, yellow carpenter's glue. Tacks a little fast, and it can tack under pressure, so you might have an issue there. The yellow carpenter's glue does. Okay, so I'm going to lock it in, and instead of being up here, of course down here where I can pound on it. And put a little bit on the tenon. And make sure I get the grain orientation right, which is going to be the growth rings running that way. And, that ain't even close. I got it. Now I'll take one of these fine toothbrushes. Okay, now if I'm using if I'm doing a natural chair, one that's not painted, then I wouldn't wipe that glue off with the toothbrush and the water. It would dilute it and put it down into the pores. I'd be much more careful with how I applied the glue. Okay, now we'll put in the other stretcher. Straight back up there. Okay, there you go. Now here, I've got a couple of things to make sure I do right. One of them is I need to put it in like that instead of like that. So one way you can look at that is just visually, it doesn't look right. But the other is the numbers should all be on the same side, because I put the numbers on the bottom side of the stretcher. So you look, make sure all the numbers are lined up. The other thing I have to do is, as I pound it in, make sure that they line up. You just look over it. And you move it as you hit it, because the joints are so tight. Got a little bit more to go. The joints are so tight you can't move it unless you're whacking on it. Had to get medieval with that one. Now the glue's, it's not in its hot pot over there, but it's in the hot water, so it's staying nice and loose for right now. But if it took me too long, I'd have to stick it back over there and keep that water hot. Okay, so I've got it laying over here on the seat right like that, and I see that the angles look nice, and that's number 4, and that's 4th leg, and 1, and so on and so forth, 2 and 3. So that's always nice when they all line up like that, and instead of 4 being over here. So now I'll start assembling it into the leg. Now, a lot of ways to do this, as there is every single thing I do. Let's see. There's number 1, but this is a good way to do it right here. There's number 2. So, and there's one, and there's two, and I can put the glue on it right like that and tap it in. And if the joints are loose enough, I can take it all the way in. But if they're tight, a little too tight, then I'll have to take them part way in, pull it out, and take it over to the jig and drive them the rest of the way in. But that way, see, one of the issues right here is if I was just driving it into, let's just do it. If I just had this leg over there in that jig and it was laying down like that, I started pounding it in, I don't know what that splay angle is. Now I can get that splay angle, I can mark it, there's various ways of doing it, but if you do it right like this, you can't miss it. It automatically gives it to you and lines it up. So that's a nice safe way of doing it. The only issue is you got glue on two joints, but that's okay. Let me get my glue over here. Yep. Maybe I can work that in a little bit. Yeah. There we go. If I can back it up, get it started. Okay. So those are so tight, I'm going to take it out, lock it in over here, pound it on in, but I'm not going to hold this out here because I got too much leverage over it and I can move the joint. I want it to stay exactly where it is. Okay. Well, that looks good. Okay, now we can't do that over here. In other words, I can't put these in. Well, it can be done. I've actually done it before, but it's not pretty, and I like for things to be pretty. Putting those together right like that, you know, you can't get them in there right now, and it just doesn't work. So I'm going to have to assemble it over here. But now I've got the issue of this rake angle, like I was saying before. So the way I do that, I'm just going to stick this leg in that hole as a dummy, and stick this one. I know this leg does not go in that hole; it's just the dummy. And I'm going to side across them. And I can see that this rear leg is sitting outside of this front leg by about half the width of the foot right there. Well, that's nice because that one's the same, so I don't have to remember two different things. So I'm just going to pop number 4 back in its hole. We'll put number 3. Well, let's see. Let's put 3 in right like that, and then that way I can side it better. And you got to put on your thinking cap here. So this is number 3. There's some glue on that. Let me get that off. Felt it tacky on my fingers. Okay, that ought to work. So, this is number 3. 1, 2, 3, 3 marks. This is number 3 right here. It's going to go right like that. Now, I want this rear leg kicking out just a tad bit more, so that's exaggerated. It's going to be like that, but only about just a tad bit. So we can do that. We can do all that. We are a little bit more. There. Okay. Glue on the other side. Well, got a little bit of trash. A little bit of trash down in there. There we go. Okay, that one's going to go like that, and rear leg's going to be cocked out just a tad bit. My glue's cooling off. It's getting a little bit stickier. Now we can take it back over to the seat over here. And if you set it down, they ought to kind of line up in front of the seat along the sight line. And these sort of do. But that's about typical, sort of do. Now we'll see how the dry run looks. It looks good. All the numbers line up, so it means they're in the right place. Okay, I'm ready to glue it in. Got my wedges. Okay. Okay, so I'm ready to put this undercarriage into the seat. So we've got 4 joints that we're working with, so I like to move pretty fast. And so I put my glue back over here where it warmed up just a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and pull glue out of the pot, and now I'm going to run with it here. So. You don't want to be answering your phone or texting or anything like that while you're doing this. You should just move straight forward with it, because you get into trouble. Sweat bees. Get out of here. All sounds nice and solid. I got a good fit all the way around the bottom there, so I must have measured my lengths right. Flip it over and drive the wedges in. So I only put glue on one side of the wedge, so the other side of the wedge acts as the fail-safe part. As the tenon expands and shrinks and might want to pull off the wall of the mortise there, it gives it a weak link. Instead of pulling it off, it will separate right at the wedge there. So. Okay, there we go. Now, the next thing I'll do is to level it, cut these off, and cut a groove around the back.